The year was 2013. Damian Lillard earned Rookie of the Year. Carmelo Anthony led the league in scoring with 28.7 points per game. LeBron James had just won his second straight MVP and his fourth total. Miami Heat had just been crowned back-to-back champions of the NBA after defeating the San Antonio Spurs in a hard-fought 7-game series. LeBron and the Heat were at the top of the mountain and looked poised to be the NBA's next great dynasty. And while Heat fans the world over rejoiced, nearly 1,100 miles away in Cleveland, Ohio, Cavs fans were rejoicing for an entirely different reason. That is because the team won the right to select first overall for an NBA record 5th time. In fact, it was their second #1 overall pick in a 3-year span. This represented yet another opportunity to add to their young and talented core of Kyrie Irving, Dion Waiters, and Tristan Thompson and finally emerge from their rebuild ready to compete for a playoff spot. The question was, what should they do with the pick? The 2013 draft class wasn't considered to be star-laden. There really wasn't a consensus #1 pick like we've seen in recent drafts with phenoms like Victor Wembanyama, Cade Cunningham, and Zion Williamson all being considered perhaps the best players of their respective classes by numerous media outlets. They toyed around with the idea of moving the selection, but ultimately decided to hold on to the pick due to the lackluster type of offers they'd have received due to such an underwhelming draft class. According to Chad Ford, an ESPN insider at the time, the Cavs felt like there weren't any day one starters. This meant that instead of focusing on the biggest area of need at the time, which was a starting caliber small forward, they could turn their attention to finding a player that could be developed for later on down the line rather than provide an instant impact. It made sense to a degree if you think about it. The team already had a star at point guard in Kyrie. They had just selected what they believed to be his running mate in Dion Waiters in the prior draft and already had their center of the future after taking Tristan Thompson 4th overall in the 2011 draft as well. Throw in the fact that Anderson Varejao, a guy who was still very much impactful when healthy, was still on the roster as well, and the free agent addition of Andrew Bynum, who was just 26 at the time and who the Cavs believe was just entering his athletic prime. In addition to that, there just weren't any real starting caliber threes near the top of the draft. In fact, the only true small forward to be selected in the top 15 was Otto Porter Jr., who went 3rd overall to the Washington Wizards. And while he has managed to carve out a decent NBA career, even winning a title with the Golden State Warriors in 2022, few at the time believed he should be taken #1 overall, if any. Ford, along with many others, believed that Kentucky's Nerlens Noel and Maryland's Alex Len were the two most likely candidates. Noel was coming off a torn ACL but had been stellar in his 24 games with Kentucky, putting up averages of 10.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 4.4 blocks for the Wildcats. You heard that right, 4.4 blocks. He looked poised to be a top 3 pick prior to this injury, and even after, there was a real case to be made of him going #1 overall. And Lynn had a pretty interesting blend of size at 7'1" and speed. He was being comped to Roy Hibbert, an all-star caliber big at the time, and fit the description of a developmental player that had a high level of potential. And leading up to the draft, it really appeared that they would select Noel. Their lead doctor, Dr. Richard Parker, medically cleared him. The Cavs were letting everybody know that they were going to take the best available talent. They knew he wouldn't be an immediate starter and had a lot of upside. All signs seemed to point in his direction. Chris Grant, the Cavs general manager at the time, knew that after 3 straight losing seasons, he was facing a lot of pressure from Cavs owner Dan Gilbert to make the postseason, and that meant making the most out of this selection. He was a big fan of Ben McLemore, but he was far from a surefire prospect. The Cavs front office put it to a vote, and the player they decided to roll the dice on would shock the NBA world.
With the first pick in the 2013 NBA draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Anthony Bennett of Toronto, Canada, and the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Anthony Bennett, after 1 year at UNLV, becomes the first player taken in the 2013 NBA draft.
Reese, I need medical help.
The look of shock on your face.
Oh my God.
You see Bennett walking up getting the congratulations from John Calipari, the Kentucky coach, and Nerlens Noel's coach, and you saw the disappointment on Noel's face that he wasn't selected #1.
A sense of pride there. Everybody wants to be the #1 pick, especially if you're in the conversation. These are the nights that players remember competitively.
Thanks, Reese. Here are the #1 pick. Jabbar, Magic, LeBron, Bennett. How's that sound?
Sounds pretty good, man. I mean, you know, being the #1 pick has a lot of name to it, but, you know, I just feel like it's the game of basketball. So I'm gonna call here, you know, work hard, encourage my teammates, you know, and just do what I can.
You're the highest drafted Canadian ever. What's this mean for you and for Canada?
I mean, it's history, man. Hopefully we can repeat it, you know, next year with Andrew Wiggins coming in. But, you know, it's just a great honor, you know. I'm speechless right now. I don't even know what to say, basically.
Reese, #1 pick, Anthony Bennett. Congratulations.
Absolutely no one outside of that front office knew what was coming up until that point. Fans, draft experts, analysts, hell, we were all stunned from what we had just witnessed. Even Bennett himself was surprised he was taken. Even going as far as to say that he was just as surprised as everybody else. This is because, like Kyrie before him, Cleveland didn't even inform him that they had arrived at this decision. And it's not as if Bennett wasn't getting any hype prior to the draft. Numerous outlets at the time had him mocked as a potential top 10 pick. After all, he had shown flashes as a freshman. He was a forceful presence inside and had enough range to knock down the college triple, as evidenced by his 37.5% mark from beyond the arc in his lone season at UNLV. He had displayed quite the quick first step and a face-up game in the post, but didn't have an established back-to-the-basket game. Mike Brown, the Cavs head coach at the time, was a big fan of Bennett because UNLV was also recruiting his son Elijah and allowed him a chance to watch the Rebels play on numerous occasions. And he came away with the impression that Bennett could morph into a small forward at the NBA level. In other words, he looked like a player who could eventually step into the vacant small forward position due to his size and high offensive upside. He was a gamble the Cavs genuinely felt was worth taking, although there were red flags about both his weight and defense from the jump. Nevertheless, Bennett was the pick, and the Cavs seemed excited to watch him develop alongside the rest of their young core. That excitement would soon evaporate as members of the organization would quickly notice those red flags weren't just talk. Apparently, it didn't take all that long for team officials to question Bennett's work ethic, and they quickly came to the realization that he couldn't necessarily line up at either forward position. Now on the depth chart, he was overshadowed by Thompson, Varejao, and Bynum, which by itself seems harmless enough considering that each of those guys had already proven themselves to a degree. However, it should also be mentioned that Bennett had surgery to repair a rotator cuff in his left shoulder, which caused him to miss pre-draft workouts and summer league. He also dealt with both sleep apnea and asthma. Honestly, looking back at it, it may have been both a gift and a curse for Bennett. Missing the pre-draft workouts may have worked out in his favor because it limited the amount of tape and scouting that teams had on him to purely just his one-year college tenure. However, missing Summer League may have robbed him from showcasing his talents to the team that drafted him and prevented him from staying in game shape. Hell, he wasn't even cleared for 5-on-5 basketball activities until mid-September of that year. That 4-month hiatus really hurt him. He managed to show up to his first training camp overweight by about 15 pounds and was out of shape. Considering the time he missed, this was a little understandable. The story goes, when he appeared in the Cavs intra-squad scrimmage, which was being held at Baldwin Wallace University in early October, he was gassed after only a few trips up and down the court. This is never a good sign in regards to a player's conditioning. I mean, sure, for you or me, that might sound normal, but we are talking about a professional basketball player, the #1 pick at that. The questions in relation to his conditioning never truly ceased. His preseason debut didn't exactly go as planned either, scoring just 7 points on a horrid 2 of 12 from the field. He did pull down 12 boards though, but he also turned the ball over 4 times. He flashed the potential that got him selected #1 overall in his second preseason appearance though, as he dropped 16 points on 6 of 11 from the field, including 2 of 5 from distance. His post moves, a step back jumper, and range were all on display. But overall, the preseason wasn't kind to him. He put up averages of 9.4 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 0.9 assists to go along with a horrific field goal percentage of 34.8%. I attribute the field goal percentage to Bennett taking 43 total shots from outside the paint to just 24 inside it. The hype surrounding his regular season debut was basically non-existent compared to what we are accustomed to seeing from a typical top pick. There just wasn't a ton of coverage, and it was becoming easier and easier to see from the outside. His regular season debut didn't really alleviate any of these questions surrounding him either, as he only saw the court for about 15 minutes, scoring just 2 points on his 2 makes from the charity stripe. He missed all 5 of his field goal attempts but did manage to haul in 5 boards. Now, if you were paying attention to his preseason outings and regular season debut, you probably came away with the takeaway that Bennett wasn't necessarily being utilized the same way he had been at UNLV, where he lined up at the power forward position and was a physical presence in the painted area due to his ability to bully his way past defenders for easy baskets inside. The touch he displayed out on the perimeter complemented that pretty well. Now, at the NBA level up to that point, most of his opportunities to score came out on the perimeter where he clearly wasn't yet comfortable operating. Some of this was by design, as he was coming in as an undersized forward at the NBA level. This led many to believe that he would eventually need to make the transition over to small forward in order for his particular skill set to be best utilized. I remember waiting and waiting to see the day when Bennett would shine bright like we saw from the other Cavs top picks prior to that. That day never really came. In frustrating fashion, Anthony Bennett missed his first 16 shot attempts as a professional.
Bennett waltzing down the lane. He was
really undersized.
Bennett fires, missed a 3 ball. Third quarter, Cavs down 5. Bennett using his muscle, missed it though.
Cavaliers out of UNLV. Steps away and missed it as me. And then he leads it.
Quarter with C.J. Miles, Alonzo T, Anthony Bennett, and Andrew Bynum. Bynum scored the last 6 points for the Cavs. In the corner, got to go. In the corner, Bennett backs up for 3. No.
His first make was a triple at the top of the key off of a pass from Jarrett Jack in a game against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Knocking it down is Anthony Bennett. Welcome to the club, AB. Welcome to the NBA, young fella. Deep in the Bradley Center.
The whole bunch was up enjoying that one as AB got one to go. Maybe that'll get some of the pressure off him. I'm sure he's been feeling that.
Welcome to the NBA, young fella. He finally gets one to go down. In his rhythm, knocks it down.
Not worrying about the results, and a bit of a smile for the Rooks, and whoo, my shoulders feel lighter.
Breaking that seal seemed to be something the entire team was waiting on, as they can visibly be seen celebrating. And don't get me wrong, it's great that his teammates were being supportive of him, but I'm sure this wasn't exactly what they were expecting when he was brought in. After that, things just never really took off. Bennett was still working to get his weight down, as it was reported that he had lost somewhere between 12 to 15 pounds from training camp to December of that year, a span of about 2 months. It didn't appear to help, as Bennett would average just 2.6 points, 2 rebounds, and completed just 28.7% of his shot attempts over his first 2 months of the season. The UNLV product wouldn't even record the first double-digit scoring affair until his 33rd appearance in the league. A January 28th loss to the New Orleans Pelicans, in which he completed 5 of his 10 field goal attempts, including 2 of 3 from three-point range. He would go on to score in double figures just 6 times in his 52 total games his rookie season. It was a sad sight to see. Fans were losing patience, booing him early on. Head coach Mike Brown was never really one to trust rookies to begin with as well, especially with the Cavs trying to make a playoff push after missing the postseason in 3 consecutive seasons. He failed to start a single game, something that has become quite uncommon for first overall picks. In fact, to take it a step further, since Bennett was taken in 2013, the only other top pick to not start a single game in their rookie season was Markelle Fultz, who only suited up in 14 games before missing the rest of his rookie season due to thoracic outlet syndrome. Other top picks, such as Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, Ben Simmons, Zion Williamson, Cade Cunningham, and Paolo Banchero, started every game they appeared in during year 1. But for the Cavs, Bennett was the odd man out in the rotation at times, despite Brown trying very, very hard to acclimate him to the NBA. He tried him at both forward spots, he tried giving him garbage minutes to build his confidence, he tried to sit him and give him time to clear his head. The only thing Cleveland refused to do was send him down to the D League because they didn't want to cause irreparable damage to his psyche. Anthony Bennett would finish the 2013-2014 season with averages of 4.2 points, 3 rebounds, 0.3 assists, and a field goal percentage of 35.6%, including 24.5% from three-point range. This remains the 3rd lowest scoring average in a rookie season by a top pick in NBA history. Not necessarily something you want to be associated with. Former Cavs GM David Griffin perhaps put it best when he dropped this little nugget in regards to Bennett. The issue with Anthony was, and we had no way of knowing it at the time, the kid had no desire to overcome adversity whatsoever. As soon as it was hard, he was out. His whole life, he rolled out of the bed bigger, better, and more talented than everybody else. As soon as it was hard, it was over. And I was the one on campus at UNLV. I'm the one who got sold the Bill of Rights, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker. But I feel bad Chris took it for that, because Chris was the one guy who wasn't sure. That's a pretty damning quote, guys. Bennett would go on to participate in his first and only summer league during the 2014-2015 offseason period, where he actually looked to be better conditioned and more confident. He put up solid averages of 13.3 points and 7.8 rebounds in 4 appearances for the Cavs. And then a bombshell dropped when LeBron James announced that he was coming home. A move that was sure to expedite the process in Cleveland and take them from fringe playoff participants to would-be contenders. The timeline for players like Anthony Bennett, the recently drafted Andrew Wiggins, and to a lesser degree Kyrie and Dion Waiters was about to be altered forever. He didn't get much time to soak it all in though, as his time in Cleveland would come to an abrupt end as he, along with Wiggins, would be shipped to Minnesota in a 3-team deal that saw the arrival of star forward Kevin Love, a 3-time All-Star up to that point, about to enter the prime of his career. Just the type of player the Cavs needed to become overnight title contenders. Good for the city of Cleveland, bad for one Anthony Harris Bennett. That was how his tenure in Cleveland ended, gone before he ever really got a chance. Bennett is now 30 years old and far removed from those days. He's bounced around the league a bit before taking his talents overseas, where he has most recently been linked to the Sono Sky Gunners, signing a 1-year deal with the KBL team. At the end of the day, the tale of Anthony Bennett is one of wasted talent, a wasted pick, and wasted time. He was perhaps the victim of a lackluster draft class, one that has seen only 3 of its members make an All-Star appearance and is currently being carried by Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is a cautionary tale of what reaching in the draft can do and remains perhaps the biggest bust in NBA history. A tough title to hold, but one that will stick with him until the next Anthony Bennett takes his place.